Hey guys, hope you're doing well and welcome to my channel. And today I'm really excited to walk you through the process of working with Axonometric. We will break it down into 6 easy steps and I will show you the whole workflow initially. I used 3D Studio Max software for modeling and then I rendered the V-Ray and finally I worked on the output with Photoshop. So step 1 is all about building the foundation of the work. This basic modeling involves creating walls, creating ceiling, floors, and some simple details. I used 3D Studio Max software to do this and got the modeling of the work done. Moving on to step 2, it's time to add some special objects to the scene, one step at a time. For instance, in this project, I had this cool idea of rotating vertical gardens, starting with a reference image, and I gradually shaped it using 3D modeling techniques. Once that was done, I ended up with this unique object. Now, if you need more than one of these objects in your scene, no worries, just make copies, but here's a neat trick. If you plan to edit these objects later on and want to apply some changes to all of them at once, make sure to copy them as instance in 3D Studio Max. This way, your edits will actually ripple through all the copies. The next important point is to make V-Ray object proxies. Especially for objects with a high number of meshes proxying, these objects can significantly speed up your software's workspace. Now let's dive into the fun part, adding those awesome details that your project requires. For instance, I'm working on the railing section inside the project by using a simple line and the railings command. I'm trying to elevate the modeling details a notch and make them more complete. The next step is importing the ready-made objects you need within your scene and utilizing these objects. I've previously created a video on where to find and download high-quality free objects. I will share the link here again. In this part, you can see that I'm incorporating green space objects and then various workshop related objects, including some different devices and machines and different materials. And finally, I'm placing the ceiling details objects in the desired position and starting to make copies of these objects. By completing this stage, you're pushing the modeling process a step further and your work is gradually getting ready for the next step, which is actually rendering. Alright, the next step involves creating and modeling the surroundings of your project. This includes neighboring buildings, the streets around, greeneries, basically, and everything that should be part of the scene. Make sure to focus on what falls within the camera's view. This part is really important, the parts you think the scene will capture. Alright, here you see the boundaries and surroundings of your work and how they're modeled. Take a look at the streets, green spaces, and those 2 cutting lines that are popping out of the work. Now let's dive into the next step, a really crucial one, working on the materials. The materials I'm using here are V-Ray materials, and there are 2 steps to it. In the first step, you choose your desired color in the V-Ray material mode. For instance, I'm going for a light gray color, and then I jumped into the diffuse map section, and in the V-Ray tab, I search for the VrayEdgeTex material. When you select VrayEdgeTex, you can assign a specific color to the edges of your work. Okay, after picking VrayEdgeTex, it has a section called color. if you choose color, you can pick the color of those edges. Here I'm selecting a darker gray shade. If you notice, my base material is a light gray, and the material for the edges, which it automatically detects, is a darker gray. You can adjust this to make it thicker or thinner. From down below, you can increase or decrease the thickness of the work. Alternatively, depending on your taste, you can give it a different color that matches your project's color tone. It doesn't have to be actually a grayscale. You can pick any color you want. For instance, let's say I go with red, just for example. Okay, another creative twist you can try is inverting these colors, make them the opposite. Give it a test and see how it turns on. Actually, I believe it could be very interesting. It means having bright edges and a darker base material. Try this one. I think it could be really unique. Okay, all right. Let's take a look at how I planned for the final look of the work using 3 variations of these materials in 3 different steps. I've considered one to be the thickest, another medium, and the last one very thin. I tried categorizing these based on the objects within the project. For example, for objects like trees or those with lots of polygons or edges, I aim to use the thinnest material to avoid them looking too dark within the work. On the other hand, for the parts that have been cut or involving slabs or main walls or main objects, I consider the thicker material to emphasize on them. Moving on to the next step, lighting up the scene. Lighting for axonometric isn't a complex affair. I use a dome light for this scene. It's a V-Ray light, and the only thing you need to do is to adjust the multiplayer to control the light intensity. You will figure this out through test renders, and you can adjust it until you get the right intensity. And then there's a mode where you can either choose the light color or use temperature mode to fine-tune the light color. Okay, now let's move on to a crucial step, how to set up the camera. Here I use a V-Ray camera. To set up this camera, you access the camera section and then choose V-Ray and finally the physical camera. First, you pick the angle and then elevate the camera upwards. An important point to remember for V-Ray cameras is that you cannot have a technically strict orthogonal view to capture a flat view of the scene. It will always be in perspective. You cannot make a V-Ray camera truly orthogonal. However, a trick here is to set the camera with a telephoto lens. So pull the camera further back and increase the focal length to a higher number. So let's say the focal length something like 3000 or 4000. But make sure the camera is positioned farther back and adjust the frame. So this technique almost minimizes the perspective effect to the minimum possible. It's not super precise, but it's a good trick if you're working with V-Ray and focusing on the settings for your axonometric project with V-Ray. An essential point to keep in mind for rendering your work is to definitely save your render elements. One of the most crucial render elements you need is VrayWireColor. This will be crucial in the next step when you want to edit in Photoshop. It enables easy selections of the layers and the areas you want to edit, making the editing process much more easier. Moving on to the next step, which involves the Photoshop and post-production of your work within this program. The first step for this is to import all the save render elements from 3D Studio Max and V-Ray. So you can tweak the contrast of your work in comparison to the output you've obtained, camera settings and lighting, slightly enhancing the contrast as needed. Here I've increased the contrast a bit. In the next step, I selected the floors and assigned them a light gray color using the render element, VrayWireColor, which boosts the contrast a bit. I also enhanced the lightness slightly. Then I gradually started selecting distinct areas. For instance, my project had 2 channels alongside it, and I selected and began coloring them, and then I made the streets a bit darker. An important part to focus on is to represent the slabs in areas that have been cutted with a black color. This contributes to enhancing the depth of your work. The next step involves adding a stroke around the work to give it more depth. So how do you apply a stroke to it? After selecting the area, you can easily select this area using the VrayWireColor. Once you've selected the area, open a new layer and assign a color to it. The color itself isn't that much important. Any color would work. For instance, here I choose red. After assigning the color to the desired empty layer, right-click on the layer name and enable blending option. Then select the stroke option, and from its setting, adjust the line thickness according to your preference in the size section. You can even adjust the color from the lower part of the setting. Finally, to remove the base color of the work, set the fill of the layer to 0. These steps will help add more dimension and depth to your project, making it more visually appealing. The next step involves emphasizing the cut areas. You can again select these areas, assign a darker color using the VrayColor, and finally adjust the opacity or use a brush to make it more fine. So, following this, connect the cut areas in a certain way. For instance, here I'm using a dotted line in Photoshop. This process is quite straightforward. First, open a new layer and then press B to activate the brush tool. Then adjust the brush size to a smaller size that you find appropriate. Next, enter the brush settings and let's increase the spacing. This will create a gap between the brush strokes. For connecting the first point to an end point, first click on the first point and then go to the second point, hold down the Shift key and click once. This will connect the first point to the second. For example, I did this twice here, and you can do the same for all the cut areas. So the next step involves adding objects like cutouts or human figures to the scene. The next step is adding text. You can easily draw lines for text using a brush or shape tool. After drawing the lines, you can simply write the text. The following step is adding icons to your work. Finally, you will see the output of your work, showcasing the level of details and improved depths. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I will be really happy if you like the video, hit the like button and share it with your friends. And goodbye until the next video.